if you had to bet $1,000,000, will Kelly Harper be the head coach of the Lady Vols next year?
No. And I would bet that because I'll just say it. You guys may disagree with me. I have a lot of faith in Danny White because Danny White has a lot of faith in himself. And this is the first time Tennessee has had an athletic director that has the full faith and confidence in himself. Dave, you covered Mike Hamilton. You covered Dave Hart at the start. You know Philip Fulmer. Do any of those people strike you as people who are 100% certain of what they're doing in the face of backlash from everybody else?
No.
But Danny White's not scared.
Okay, but here's the issue. It's not what people think of me. It's cash money, homie. It's exactly what it is. Cash money, cash money. Because you can get Kelly Harper for 1.4. Others like Kim Mulkey cost LSU 3.4 million, I believe it was, or 3.2. So you're going to have to pay somebody more. You're going to have to make another financial commitment to someone, and you're going to have to pay off Kelly Harper because you fired her. Your football team is not rebuilt yet. When your football team is completely rebuilt and playing for national titles, then you can have your luxury item, which is the Lady Vols. Why were the Lady Vols great in the 80s and 90s? Happens to correlate with a guy coming back to Tennessee in a similar time frame. Johnny Majors hired back at Tennessee. The football coffers were full. People were throwing money at the athletic department left and right. Surely Johnny Majors was going to turn things around. It took a little longer than you thought. But what did that mean for Pat Summitt? It meant if Pat Summitt needed, and I'm not exaggerating, something as small as a water heater fixed, she got it done because the money was there. The money right now is being spent on NIL and isn't going to be at an elite level until Tennessee wins a national title. I think we would all agree. When that money comes down the pike, you're in a different place. They're not in that place yet. Danny White was also 29 years old the last time Tennessee won a women's basketball national championship. Do you really think he feels in his heart what the Lady Vols mean to so many people? I don't believe so. I don't believe he would pull the trigger or will pull the trigger. They just gave her a new contract. Part of this came from a source I spoke to. I don't think they're going to fire her. I think they're going to be okay with the Lady Vols just languishing around, and it'll give us something to talk about for years to come. But this is a luxury item, and right now the Vols don't have money for a luxury item.
I think Danny White is such a good hirer that he'll find somebody that you could get even cheaper than Kelly Harper. There's guys he's found. There's coaches he's found in the women's game. Women's basketball has actually been, he's the best hirer of athletic directors in the country. Women's basketball is his forte at hiring. Okay, he found somebody named Felicia Leggett-Jack. He got her to Buffalo, and everybody counted her out because she had gotten fired at Indiana in 2012, and nobody realized all the inner workings of why she got fired. There were a lot of things that were working against her at the time. She goes to Buffalo, turns that into a great program. She's now at Syracuse, and they're 23-6. They're going to the NCAA tournament in her second year there. He's found coaches all over the place. He is the best hirer. He's the best at finding coaches that
Still
you could ever.
Kelly.
I think you do it. And here's the.
You'll have to pay Kelly.
So you're arguing that for right now, Tennessee should just focus on keeping women's basketball afloat and just hitting a baseline until they get the football program to where they're at, right? That's what you're saying?
I'm not saying that's what I would do, but I'm saying that's what they're going to do. By the way, I mentioned that Danny White was 29 years old last time.
Yes.
Yes. He won a national championship.
Here's why I totally disagree with that. And I wanted to get to this.
And this is coming from a source. I'm not just throwing this out there. It's not going to happen this year, is what I was told. That doesn't mean you can't go out there and get beat 100-20 by Western Carolina in the first round and you don't get fired. But that's what I was told right now. By the way, if
Women's
you search
basketball.
Lady Vols right now, Camila Cardoza comes up.
That's the one who hit the three. She's the one who hit the three and banked it in.
No, but she's one of the first images that comes up. Just her profile page. Go ahead.
Well, this is why I'm telling you. This is why this is a big deal. Women's basketball right now is gaining in popularity. There's the Caitlin Clark story that everybody's loved this year with her setting all the records. And then who watched yesterday's SEC title game between South Carolina and LSU? I did. Cardozo is trending because a massive fight broke out with Cardozo being involved, pushing flau'jae Johnson for LSU, knocking her to the ground, and then flau'jae Johnson's brother runs from the stands and jumps over the stands onto the court like he's going to fight a woman for pushing his brother, which is hilarious, okay? It was epic theater.
Wait, that is epic theater, and the women's game with Caitlin Clark at Iowa is getting bigger, but you don't ever expect them to turn a coin on that, do they? I mean, you're never going to make money on women's basketball.
I think women's basketball is very much where... Look, people are underestimating this, but women's basketball has... It's not doing much worse than the NBA was doing in the 60s. And what I mean is it takes a long time for... It took a lot... Remember this, guys. I don't know if you remember this. The NBA was a hockey sub...
The NBA was really bad in the 60s.
No, here's my point. It was a hockey subsidized league. The point of the NBA was NHL owners needed to fill their stadiums when they didn't have hockey games. That's the whole reason the NBA was actually invented, was so they could find a way to fill the stadiums when hockey games weren't happening. It wasn't to make money. It was to offset some losses, period, in the story. And then it got popular because of narratives. What happened in the 60s, Dave? You know this. Russell and Chamberlain. That made a narrative in the NBA, and it made it very popular. The Russell Chamberlain, the Celtics, can the Lakers get past the Celtics? The only reason the NBA didn't really take off until the 80s after that, it would have taken off in the 70s, but they stupidly decided to create the ABA, not the NBA itself, but the ABA came out and they split all the talent up, and all the talent was on half and half in the NBA and the ABA. Had it just stayed the NBA, it would have actually taken off in the 70s, not the 80s like it did with Bird Magic. You're getting these narratives.
Not that we got sidetracked there.
No, but you're getting these narratives now happening in women's basketball. You are. Okay. The South Carolina LSU is becoming a really chippy rivalry. And then yesterday, I don't know if you saw, Kim Mulkey came out, who was coaching LSU, obviously, and said she wished Cardozo pushed Angel Reese, her own player, instead of flau'jae Johnson, because Angel Reese is closer to her size. Which is like, you just said you wished a player pushed one of your own players down. But I get it. Like, there was a narrative of, why are you pushing down the little guard and not Angel Reese, who was playing dirty with Cardozo the whole game? These narratives were all out there yesterday. The Caitlin Clark narrative is out there. The Caitlin Clark-Angel Reese rivalry. That's all going into the NCAA tournament. And you know who nobody is talking about right now? The school most responsible for all of this stuff happening.
I think what we have to ask ourselves as it pertains to the Lady Vols, and if you think you can actually make money in women's basketball, which Caleb seems to think you can, is the Caitlin Clark thing Shaun White, or is it snowboarding? And by that, I mean, Shaun White was the perfect guy, big red hair, long curly red hair, to promote snowboarding. And then it bounced up a huge other level and became a real thing. Is Caitlin Clark that type of player that it becomes a real thing? The answer is no. I mean, no, it's not. If Candace Parker, who was bigger, better, and fact is gorgeous, if she can't make it a mainstream sport, then Caitlin Clark can't make it a mainstream sport. Caleb, I love you, and I think the Lady Vols are fantastic, but you're never going to turn a coin on that. Prove me wrong. Brought to you by our friends at City Heating and Air Conditioning. CityHeatandAir.com. 50 years in East Tennessee. Integrity matters. Don't trust that fly-by-night HVAC company tell you that you need a new unit when it could cost thousands or more. City Heating and Air. CityHeatandAir.com. Caleb, you're never going to make money at women's basketball.
Here's
I hate to be that guy, but I'm that guy.
Here's the problem with your Candace Parker take. Candace Parker has a little bit of chippiness and edge to her. And I'm going to say it, and you guys can come at me, but it was a giant flaw in the way she approached the game. Pat Summitt approached the game of making women's basketball. I don't want to say the phrase gentleman's game, so I guess a ladies' game. And what I mean by that is you play with class, you win with class, and you don't carry yourself any other way. Is that fair to say that's how Pat Summitt carried it?
Yeah.
Coached it?
Yeah.
That took the edge off of people like Candace Parker, who is low-key one of the best trash talkers in basketball, but she reserves it a lot because of what she was coached to do by Pat Summitt. If you let Candace Parker beat Candace Parker, then you would have Angel Reese. Imagine Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark's attitude with inside Candace Parker. That is what you need, okay? Because you don't have that right now. You have Caitlin Clark, who's got a little bit of the chippiness, but Candace Parker was the perfect person to do that. But Pat Summitt kind of coached out, you play like a lady. You need to play appropriate and be good and, carry yourself right and be a choir girl. And in my mind, I'm like, not everybody needs to be a choir girl. And Candace Parker has some edge. For instance, one of the moments, Candace Parker has real beef with Gina Auriemma. Genuinely doesn't like him because for those who don't know, Gina Auriemma kept Candace Parker off the 2016 Olympic team specifically because Candace Parker didn't commit to play for UConn in 2004. I'm not kidding. That is the narrative that needs to be out there more, but she doesn't talk about it that much because she's too classy. And what I'm saying is we need a little bit of classlessness in women's basketball.
Okay.
And that's where Angel Reese comes into play. And
I don't think you're ever going to make money on it. I don't believe just financially that's ever going to change. I think the goal is to lose less. And that's going to be how it plays out for the remainder of college sports, however long that may be. But
Tony, by the way, sorry, keep going.
Well, I was going to give you an interesting plan
that
Tennessee could do that's a little off the beaten path. But go ahead with what you were going to say.
I was just going to say for Tony Mosier saying Caitlin Clark is the best women's player ever. Caitlin Clark could not start on the all-time Lady Vols team or the all-time UConn team. She wouldn't.
Glad that we got a message for shout out in there. I want to thank our friends at Ray Varner Ford Selection, best prices, hometown service in Clinton, Tennessee, worth the drive. RayVarnerFord.com, RayVarnerFord.com. They bring you the one, the only Jimmy Himes on Wednesday. Now, Caleb, there's another approach Tennessee could take. What about just dialing down what you're doing with the Lady Vols? What about hiring a coach for $500,000 instead of $1.4 million and throwing another $900,000 at a guy like Nico? Now, I know that it's not the same fund, and I know that you would have to call one booster and say, hey, if you can, divvy up this part of your donation to Spire Sports because they need to pay Nico's best receiver ever. That's what I would do. I'd dial it down. I'd have a $500,000 head coach. I'd hope to go 500 until the football team won a championship, and then I'd get serious. You don't like that at all, do you? But you kind of do. That's what's tough.
I think the move is short-sighted because I do think women's basketball this is where we just disagree. I think women's basketball is growing more than you think it is. And I think Tennessee needs to be on the cusp of it growing because Tennessee is what happens if this happens, Dave? What happens if 50 years from now, women's basketball is a thriving sport and Tennessee's the Vanderbilt of women's basketball, which is, for those who don't know, Vanderbilt was great in football in the 19-teens. And, up until the 80s, you had these old guys that fought in World War I. They were like, Vanderbilt was great back in the day. And, you're going to see people saying that about the Lady Vols that are, 85 years old. And be like, well, in my day, we had the Lady Vols, Louisiana Tech, and UConn. And it's like, do you really want the Lady Vols to be that in 50 years?
Well, when you have a legend like General Neyland or you have a legend like Pat Summitt, those sorts of things happen. You have decades-long droughts in some cases. And that may well be the case with Tennessee's women's basketball program. In fact, it's already pretty close to that. We're about 15 years deep, kids.
We are. And honestly, I think it's deeper than that. I think Tennessee's drought would be much longer if Pat Summitt didn't strike gold and get Candace Parker. Because if you take out those 2 years with Candace Parker, Tennessee doesn't have a national championship since 1998. Now I know that's like, oh, can you take out that year with, this or that? But let's be honest. Candace Parker is the only 21st century Lady Vol that would start on the all-time Lady Vol team.
Smoky Mountain Red said, do you feel having a man coach ladies team would be a negative in recruiting besides Gino Ariema? I don't think so. I've never thought about it like that. We've always taught lady men, but I don't think a men's coach would, not that Pat Summitt's son did anything to help that narrative, but I don't think that would be an issue. I wouldn't have any issue with that. Would you? Let's just pretend I didn't say that. Coming up here in just a moment, we will.
You're right. He does Bible study now, guys. He does Bible study with his new wife, the same way Hugh Freeze does Bible study, I'm sure.
It's fine, and it may be altruistic, but a lot of people say that, and nothing's changed. But anyway.
No. I think anybody who says that does nothing changes. That is always cover for I'm still a pig. I bet Bobby Petrino probably says he does Bible study.
Well, that's not always.